talent show.
I was kind of a failure when I was younger. My mom was always angry. She'd smoke a pack of cigarettes and just be like, Kenny, you're just a waste of talent. You're supposed to take me out of the park. It's never happened.
It's never happened.
Yeah, it's not even detecting it.
Yeah.
You had one job.
One job. I failed.
For all of YouTube land, this is Mr. Brooks. We don't know his first name, but we know him as Mr. Brooks.
It's my first name's Mr.
He's more than just a handsome talent body.
Right.
There's a lot of
Right. Mr. there.
a lot of emotion in there.
I got you on my phone as Mista. My kind Adam Sandler stuff. Happy Gilmore. Mista.
Professional bobsled team.
So, we got a YouTube special today. Tell these guys what we're doing.
Prestige worldwide. Why?
So, Mr. Brooks invited us down
I'm gonna do what I tell the kids not to do.
to teach automotive stuff. We're trying to get the young generation and stuff like NOS. I almost brought some C16.
That's
And I was gonna be like,
told
you guys want to smell this? This isn't like regular gas. But then I was like, no, they'll be like, stop making the kids smell gas.
So anyways,
We'll move the block over here.
whatever's most comfortable. Because we'll probably be like trying to set up our presentation. Kenny's gonna do most of the talking.
Here, grab this side. We'll scoot her a little closer.
Hold on.
Hold on. I'll just put my phone down on. How about there? Yeah. A little bit of both sides.
Well, they want the day-to-day stuff, so
A little bit even.
All right, what do you want? You want the tour? You want to go get some coffee?
I'm cool with whichever you prefer.
I mean,
You got nothing but
you
time.
can
baby.
always steal our counselor's coffee too. He has
We don't
espresso.
have to leave. It'll take too long. We got some Mountain Dews in the truck too.
Yeah.
Mountain Dew's in here
You want a
too.
Mountain Dew?
Let's grab Mountain Dew.
You know, probably 17, 18 years involved. And we have a decent sized shop and a few guys, and that's all we do 7 days a week is race and build cars. And it's a very rewarding feeling. And it's one of those things where you can really take it how you want. Like if you have a dream and anyone ever tells you it's silly, don't listen to them. You can do whatever you want to be in this world. You just have to chase your goals and dreams. So up here's a video. This is the world's fastest Volvo, and we had a hand in building this car. This car made about 2,800 horsepower, and it ran 670 at 210 and a quarter mile. It actually won drag week. It was the fastest modified car ever to win drag week in 2022, 22 or 21, whichever. But it still to this day holds a record for the modified chassis car. So it's still steel body, all glass windows, and it's the fastest one in the whole world. So that's pretty cool. The small Swedish guy that you see here, he actually built it. I just did a lot of help with him and worked on it and stuff, but it's pretty cool. Does anyone think that's kind of a cool, ugly car? It's ugly, right? Yeah, you're like, ew. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a pizza with no pepperonis. You're like, no way, Jose. Yeah, give us all the pepperonis. Get rid of that ugly brown paint. So it's neat, it's different, right? Yeah. Yeah, you'd be like, a turtle could outrun that. Questions? It's pretty neat, isn't it? Yeah, it does. You're not wrong. You nailed it on that. You got a question? Northern Performance Cars. So we started it technically in 2016. I was living in Florida and I was working with a guy down there doing the same stuff. And we were away from home for a long time, so we grew up here. So my girlfriend missed home and I was like, all right, we'll move back home for a little while, we'll give it a shot. So I started a small shop and then it just got busier and busier. So then we're like, hey, we should do this for a living. So yeah, we live in a small town with only about 3,000 people. And we've had people as far as 1,400 miles away bring cars to us to do work on it. People from Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio. It's a very rewarding feeling. Ohio is for lovers. That's what Hawthorne Heights says, anyways. The what? Mr. Brooks! Oh, there it goes. Backup one? Oh, you already seen it? That's pretty funny, isn't it? In that car? The Volvo wagon? So that's actually super similar to this one right here, but it's made of iron. And it's a 388 cubic inch LS Next dart block that we assembled. And it just has like 55 pounds of boost. Yeah, like real life. So the green one, that was my last car that you just seen on the video. And we built that 2019. I raced that for 2 years, and then we bought our bigger shop. I was like, I should make some adult decisions and sell this thing. So I posted for sale for a lot of money, and then somebody snagged it because they had to have it. So we sold it, and now we're in the midst of building a new one. But that car was extremely fast. That car went 0 to 172 miles per hour in 4.38 seconds. So you see a lot of cars, you see on a brochure, they're like 0 to 60 in 5, right? That went 172 in 4.38. That's insane. So, hurt a lot of feelings with it. It was really neat. But
Have you ever gotten in a car accident?
I have. Never on the street. Surprising so. The only person I've ever hit with a car was my friend Mr. Dick. One time I seen him at lunch and he was carrying some food and I was like, I'm going to run into him and knock his food off his car. And I did it because I was 16 and I was not very smart. But it was funny at the time.
What's your fastest car that you've made?
That green one so far was the fastest one. We have a new one that we're building right now and we haven't had time to finish that. Actually, this engine's going inside and it's going to be substantially faster than that one. That's a 99 Camaro that we worked on for a customer. Yeah, you. Worked on? That's a tough one. I counted last year, we didn't quite make it to 1,000 cars, but like 970 cars. So that's a tough one. I'd have to really think back and see which one was my favorite, because I don't remember. There was a lot of cool ones. My favorite car, that's a tough one. I was just showing Mr. Brooks earlier. They have a carbon fiber Porsche that's selling for $700,000 right now, and I was thinking about selling my house and my girlfriend and buying it.
You're selling your girlfriend?
Yeah, I won't get very much for her, but I'll try.
You're gonna sell people! How many cars have you ever sold?
Whew. Mr. Dick might be able to help me with that answer a little better. I don't know. At one point, when we were like 17 or 18, I probably had about 50 cars at that point, because we would just buy them, fix them up, and sell them, because it was just a weird hobby. And we're like, heck yeah, we made $30 on this one. So it was neat. Woo! A whole bunch of people want to talk over here.
How many cars have you made?
Have I made, like built them? Like I said, last year we were around 950, 970, I lost count, just in 1 year, which we didn't do all the work to them, but we did quite a bit. So even if it was something small, I counted them. So as far as like big builds, I mean, you can see when I was sitting in the shop a minute ago, we had like 10 or 11 in there at each time. So it's a pretty large number, honestly. I couldn't tell you. I have lost count over the years.
How long have you been working at the shop?
This one, like I said, we started this shop in 2016, so this is going on like the 8th year. What's that?
Do you still build cars?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So like that was when we were on a dyno. That was when my car made 1,700 horsepower a couple years ago. But yeah, we do. Like I said, we got a green one that we're building right now that's super neat. We got really busy and behind on it, so it's going to be a slower process than normal.
Is that red truck, the Chevy, is that a Durham?
That is not. That's an LS. God made the LS for men.
It looks like a Durham.
It's similar but different. It's way better. It doesn't smoke. Jacked up diesel truck? I try not to, but I have. Yep. No, we've done a few. So 2019, the EPA actually cracked down. You're not allowed to really work on diesels like we work on cars like that. You can no longer delete or get rid of any emissions on the diesels. It's a hefty fine. I got a friend in Florida that had a $3.2 million fine from deleting trucks. So now when everyone asks, I'm just like, nope, it's not worth the fine.
I have a 1964
Tractor? You ever ride wheelies? Beep, beep, beep.
I couldn't print it.
Oh, there you go. Is it fun? Yeah, so this is the chassis dyno anyways, like you mentioned. So that's a machine that we bolt the car to, or strap the car to. And like I said, we accelerate it, and he could probably turn it up. You got that mouse with you? Turn it up, Mr. Dick. So this is a supercharged Camaro that we did, an SS Camaro. And this one made right around 719 rear wheel horsepower. So it'll get loud in a second. At some point. Save? Like an accident kind of save? Like, oh, I almost wrecked it? One time I did wreck my black Camaro. I blew a front tire, but I was going 175 miles an hour, so I was like, oh no. It was really tough to reel it back in, and I didn't wreck it, but I wrecked it. That was pretty fast, yeah. Yeah. What, you ever heard of nitrous oxide? You ever heard of nitrous oxide?
Okay, so a lot of people. Because we're talking, you can't hear the questions that are being answered, asked or answered. All right? So part of this is being respectful. So you heard what Mr. Kenny said that was that Mr. Dick was sprayed. What is it? Bryce? Nitrous oxide.
Has anyone ever heard of nitrous
Check, check.
So it's a very cold, ultra frozen gas, effectively, and they shove it in that by the pumps. What that does is it breaks the engine extremely cold.
And it gives you extremely dense air charge because more molecules can fit the smaller charge when they're colder. So it makes extreme amount of horsepower. It's really cool stuff. Very dangerous stuff and very cool stuff. El Camino, we actually have got a couple. Yeah. So we do a lot of the LS stuff specifically. So we put LSs in them. Pretty neat. Old guys.
Guys, who's got that heat?
In this race car, you are building that engine essentially from
Scratch. So, yes. Good question, Mr. Brooks. Great question. Thinking outside the box. So this engine does actually have a ton of mapping. So what you have to do is you have to take bore size, which this is the 4.125 bore size. You have to multiply that bore size by 0.055, and that's going to give you your ring end gap. So what this does is your ring end gap is going to dictate how much cylinder pressure can pass through this ringland. And the point being is you have to allow some, because if you don't, this would snap. This isn't a very strong piece. I could probably break it right now. I don't want to, because it's like $25 for this. But the ring end gap has to be gapped to a certain distance in between to allow a certain amount of combustion pressure to go down through the crankcase pressure. And what that does is it basically is a bleed off. It's kind of like if you're full and you don't go to the bathroom, it hurts after a while, right? Similar to that, but different. So, yeah, everyone knows that. Except Dick, he'll be like, oh, I'm still holding it. So, he's turning red. But yeah, on top of that, there's a ton of other stuff you have to measure. So the bottom, the crankshaft is stuck here in the bottom. And that's this thing right here that can spin. So this crankshaft, this is a one-off custom piece that Callie's and Energy made me out of Ohio. So what you have to do with this is the same kind of thing. This has to spin, right? So if it was too tight, it wouldn't spin. No oil would be allowed through it. So it's loose enough to where oil can pass and I can spin it, but it's tight enough to where it doesn't just flop around, because if it did, it would break. So you have to take very precise measurements. This has 0.28 bearing clearance for the mains and 0.33 to 3.5 for the rod bearings. So I have to use some very expensive small tools that measure very, very precisely to make sure that my clearances for the bearings are extremely close, because if not, it could damage the engine right away. And then for maximum horsepower, you got to find this window that really works for you. So it's super neat, and like I said, all these come with torque specs. Same thing, all the bolts on this engine, this has to be 100 foot-pounds. This has to be 45 foot-pounds. If you go too tight, it's going to deflect. It'll cause deflection. And what happens when you deflect metal, because metal can bend and bow, it'll throw your bearing clearances off side to side. You think of like a circle. You want it to be perfectly round. If it's not, it's going to touch somewhere where it shouldn't. So there's a ton of math involved in this stuff.
So like talking about your torque specs, if you did the torque correctly, what would the outcome of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we didn't torque this correctly, it would oblong, like egg-shape the main bearings, and what would happen is you would wear the bearings out prematurely on the sides of the caps. And what that would do is when you start wearing that bearing material, it's going to emit all that material that's worn off into the bottom of the pan, and eventually what you're going to do is destroy the engine completely. So very crucial that you spend time on that. It's a boring process in the end of the day, but it's something that would make a big difference. And when this engine is completely assembled, this is going to be about a $60,000 piece of machine. So you don't want to ruin it. Like, yep. And then this one specifically, yeah. Just this silver piece, they retail for about $15,000. The crankshaft in the bottom of it is about $5,000. As of one-of-one custom-made camshaft from BTR, it adds up substantially fast. So, but like I said, this is going to be record-setting stuff. Like this engine is going to make about 3,000 horsepower. We're going to make about 11 or 12 horsepower per cubic inch, which is huge. It's a super neat thing, actually, if you start breaking it down, like how much you can make per cubic inch, per volume, per weight. So that's one of the coolest parts about it.
So how many kids are thinking right now, man, 3,000 horses? How are they 3,000 horses?
Yeah, I mean, how many horses can we fit up here? 30?
Horsepower, that's the measure of power.
Yeah.
So what does it mean? Explain it to us. Why do they call it horsepower? What did we use for the internal combustion engine? For like, what did we use?
Yep. When Mr. Brooks was in school, he had to ride a horse to school. He had 1 horsepower. See, he's still got the boots. Does he ever wear spurs on the back of those? No. And whips for the horses. What do they do that? Every time I watch a movie, I'm like, why are you hurting? Yeah, it hurt.
All right. So we saw the energy. What is, you want to know what's next in nitrous?
Yeah, does anyone know what this is? Blurt it out if you know. Turbocharger. Yeah, I'm glad you guys know that. So turbochargers, when they started really putting technology into turbochargers, it really made using nitrous oxide a silly thing to do because these dampen the charge so much more and they're so much easier on drivetrain. So like this turbocharger right here, this is actually a relatively cheap piece. This one's about $1,149 retail. So we actually bought this for a car we're building right now just to basically drive around town and pop wheelies on the street. And it's a real thing too. So Mr. Brooks is gonna come drive it. He'll have a video for you guys next year. But anyway, so a turbocharger, how this works, if anyone's interested, is you have this inlet right here. So when you have an engine running, hypothetically it expels exhaust gases. You probably shouldn't, but if you've ever seen stuff coming out of the tailpipe of a car, that's CO2 basically. It's expelled fuel, it's combusted and it burns out. So when that charge goes through here, it goes through there and then this turbine spins. And when that turbine spins, it's connected to a shaft, and then that spins the compressor side. So when the compressor side spins, this actually pressurizes air inside of this compartment, and you'll have tubing that goes to the intake. And when that pressurizes, that makes a boost. They call it, it'll be KPA or pressure, PSI, whichever how you want to look at it. It's all an equation. That boost will actually make pressure inside the intake manifold, which shoves air. So it'll just force air, like it's pushing it like a blower, inside of these holes, which are the cavities for the pistons. And the more pressure and the more air you can squeeze in that hole, the more horsepower you're going to make. So turbochargers are the coolest things ever made. They have a very easy way of making horsepower. Literally, if you have a mechanical or a digital boost controller, you just simply can turn it up. So they're super neat. Does anyone want to spin it? Come spin it. Line up, do it. Mr. Brooks, you want to spin it? Between my my green Fox body and that Volvo station wagon. Both of them, the Volvo was heavier, but the Volvo made 2,800 horsepower, so it was pretty fast for its weight. And then my car was only 2,900 pounds, and I made about 2,300 horsepower. But both of them, ironic enough, went almost the same speed. So like 0 to 170 to a 0 to 172 in 4.38 seconds. Both of them. So it's pretty neat stuff. I'm like 36 years old. Say it with your chest. Yeah. Yeah, that's a problem. First one, Dick and I back in 2003-ish, we did some Chevy Berettas in my garage, and it was awful because we didn't have any of the proper tools. So we would like lift stuff up on one side and then put like one bolt in it. We'd have to pick the other side. It was awful.
But we had nitrous.
Yeah, we did have nitrous back then.
So when you're building a car, like, what is the most difficult part?
Time. So specifically like my green car that we were welding on a little while ago, and I'll show you, or Mr. Brooks can. It took 660 hours just to do one part of that car, and that was build the chassis. It took like 3 months of time just to do it. So hard is a hard thing to describe because I've done it for so long. It's not necessarily difficult for me anymore. It's just the time it takes forever. You have to be very patient, and you have to be very cautious, pay attention. So to say hard, like we've been doing, like I said, we've been doing it for a long time, so it's not really hard anymore. It's just, it takes forever to build these cars. Like, we could have 1,500 hours into a car, and you think about if you have a normal job where you work 40 hours a week, think of 660 hours, that's a lot. So that's a lot of weeks. So it is the hardest thing for me is time. So, because then you gotta live your life. You gotta hang out with your dog, you gotta go out to eat with your friends. So working on the car, you're like, whew, it's tough. It's not good, man. Like a what? We broke pretty much everything you can imagine, yeah. So, we've blown holes in the side engines. Like I said, my friend Tim, he's really good at it. Actually, we just went to the track 2 weeks ago, and first pass, he just blew his car up. I'm like, come on, man. So it wasted the whole day. So he had to pack up and hang out with us. And that's this car right here. See how much power I just flipped the fan over. It's pretty neat. Right?
If you put that engine block in a Supra, what would it do?
That would be really awesome. Yeah. Supers have a 2JZ, which is an inline 6-cylinder. That has 2 more cylinders, so effectively it can make almost 50% more power, if you want to call it that.
Have you ever had a car that did 300 after hours?
Not
Top
yet.
speed- we don't really do top speed stuff, so it's hard to say. If we converted gear ratio and stuff like that, absolutely. So specifically, the fastest I've been is 210, but that's in just a quarter of a mile.
Do you tune stuff?
I do. I'm the engine calibrator. Like I'm the one that does all the stuff on the dyno and stuff like
I've
that.
always
So-
wanted to be a mechanic.
Yeah, do it. Tuning is one of the most difficult brain-busting things you'll ever do. So there's some days when I think of stuff so hard, my head hurts. But what you have to do is you have to re-engineer or basically decode what GM engineers have done and make things work because like these cars were never designed to run with all this stuff on them. So what you have to do is you have to basically break a code to figure out how to make it operate. So to answer your question again, that is something that's difficult. The most difficult thing is the engineering behind stuff and the engine management, basically the factory ECUs especially. Sometimes you really have to work at it. Sorry, what's that? Prep track stuff. So we do a lot of prep building stuff. So it would be like concrete technically for the first little bit and then asphalt. So like if you see any of the drag strip stuff, like typical drag strip stuff, that's where like my crew and my friends race primarily at. But like for work wise, we do a bunch of off-road stuff still too. Like we do quite a bit of sand trucks. Like a lot of the guys will go to Silver Lake and do the dune races and stuff. So we support quite a bit of that stuff as well. So like we don't build a ton of them just because of time, but I do tune a lot of them, and I sell a lot of parts and support a lot of the guys. I build a lot of engines for them. So. Like my dad had cars when I was younger, and he thought he was cool. I thought he was cool at the time. So I was always just intrigued by like going faster and faster. So that's like, you know, after a while, I was like, I gotta make more. So it's exhilarating, you know, being fast. Sorry, what's that? Where's that? And what's next, Mr. Brooks?
All right, so Jason's up.
What's up? Usually, if any Fords show up, they're the cheapest ones, but we don't let them stay long. Just kidding. The cheapest one, probably like some of the Camaros and stuff like that. So like we don't discriminate for like if somebody wants to do some easy stuff, we still let them come. So we'll do exhaust and stuff like that. We don't turn people away.
Hey, Mr. Brooks, it's you.
So we'll do bolt-ons. Yeah, we'll even do rims and tires on stuff, and lift kits on some trucks, depending on who it's for. We're pretty picky now, but we'll see some cool people. We'll think, yeah, we'll work on your car for you. Boat? I think if I ever got rich, I'd start getting towards the boat stuff, because boat guys have more money than anybody in the car industry for sure. Boat guys are crazy.
But if you got into I probably expect.
Absolutely. As soon as Mr. Brooks wins the lotto, he's gonna buy a couple go fast boats. We're gonna head down to Miami and we're gonna make them really, really fast. He doesn't know that yet, but if he does, that's what's happening.
We do a lot of stuff around the
What's that?
We do a lot of stuff around the lot.
Yeah.
Hey, he just won the lotto.
He just has to win the lotto. Absolutely. What do you got? I think in the beginning it would be tough. I guess luckily for me, how I got good at it was I started down here and then I just kind of grew slowly but surely. So I wasn't always fast. In the beginning we had slow stuff, but then you get accustomed to it and then you get a little faster and you learn as you go. So I didn't just jump into the fastest car, I kind of had to work my way up. So it worked out good. You get familiar with each level, if you want to call it. Races? I don't know. Couple thousand? Like thousands? That's not a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Lots. Tons and tons.
All right, so Joel.
Probably the most expensive one we've personally done yet was a Corvette that a customer had, and it was about $150,000 bill, and it was like $900, but it was a very nice quality, nice driver car too. It was only $900. I say that only, but when you're talking about race car stuff, it's middle of the road, but it's super cool because it's still 100% street legal, still has heated and cooled seats. It's a really neat thing.
All right, so listen up real quick. So fifth graders, this is what's going to happen. You guys are actually going to be lining up here with your prospective teacher, and you're going to go to Encore, but they will be bringing you out. And we're going to get the fourth graders outside first to see.
We're just going to take this
Oh, okay. All right, well then we'll just head out there. Organized. Okay, sorry. We'll cut this a little bit short in here for.
Yeah.
Why?
Because the car is so fast that if the hood ever was to open, it wouldn't flip over and hit the windshield.
Good idea. That's a good idea. I actually saw some at the car show the other week that had that equipment like that.
So Corvettes are really funny like that. The
Yeah.
engineers of these cars, they're goofy.
Yeah.
But they do some weird stuff, but it's a cool car.
I saw some at the car show where the front opened like that.
Yeah.
I was at a car show.
But so we did all the basic stuff that you would do to it. We did headers, we did intake manifolds.